So I love to talk about this topic and I love to get it recorded because this is something that comes up a lot. Lots of questions about how do I eat? I always feel this way or that way or the other way, and I don't know what's right for me. And what do I do? The confusion is palpable. And nutrition is such an ambiguous science, and
Oh,
everybody's
I know.
body is different. So this is where we get to have a discussion. You can ask me some questions and we'll see. I'm going to mute us just for now. I'm going to give us a little um, overview of what clean eating means, what is inflammation, and then we're going to talk about like how to resolve the situation and where to go from here. How does that sound? Good. You're going to leave here. I'm going to email us a document. So as you get scared and freaked out, because that's going to be the first part of this, don't worry. You're going to get a nice list of all the healthy foods that you can choose from. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen here. I like to use images because I'm a visual learner. And I think we know what happens when I share my screen. I think it's going to be this, but it never is. Okay. So I'll be coming on and off of this sharing screen. So we'll have some time to dialogue as well as do this bad boy. Okay. So eating right for you, that's the topic that we get to discuss today. I'm Jen Sprague. This is how I like to run my life and my business. We have joy at the bottom, but really it's the foundation of everything. I'm searching and creating and generating more joy in my life. And it comes from connecting with folks like you, experiencing my kindness, feeling the passion for what I do, and always seeking growth. I can't stop learning, so that's what fuels me. Okay, let's get this going the way it should. Okay, so today we're going to talk about what inflammation is. So when I talk about clean eating, what does that mean to me? And what do I talk about with my clients? It's anything that helps reduce inflammation. So we're going to talk about that in specificity so we're clear on why it's important to eat clean. And then we're going to go over some guidelines for eating. I'm going to show us big lists of stuff that is going on when we don't eat clean, because I think in this case, it's because eating can be such an emotional experience. It's nice to really have a clear understanding of what isn't great about a lot of the foods in our diet so that we're more motivated to eat less of them. I'm going to give a caveat. When I'm with my clients, I'm never going to suggest that they restrict things from their diet. For me, it's about moderation and it's about experimenting with their own body. That's going to be our step 3 today. So I encourage my clients to figure out what works for them, use their body as their guide, learning how to read the signals of their body so that they can figure out what works for them at what time in their life. So, as far as moving forward, here we go. Let's talk food. This is Jen when she was young, and look at how she is staring down that cake. So this is my earliest experience in my relationship with some inflammation starting from the get-go. So for me, inflammation arose with my relationship with sugar and how I eventually leaned on it to cope with things throughout the stressful times in my life, the celebratory times in my life like this one. But that's my entry into this. Eventually, my digestion with the stress that I encountered in my teaching career, some of you have heard the story, really led to an autoimmune condition at the end with my skin, but it was brain fog. It was inability to focus. It was the bloating that I couldn't explain. It was gassiness, which was uncomfortable, and stomach aches and heartburn. And so the reason why I came to learn about eating anti-inflammatory foods was because of my own health problems, the discomfort, the pain and frustration of not knowing what was going on. I was suffering for a decade at least. And then it still took 5 more years. And honestly, still my gut is healing. So that's how I got into and curious about it. And I love this quote. So, when diet is wrong, medicine is of no use. But when diet is correct, medicine is of no need. And this is something that I learned from Ayurveda, from my yoga studies. But this is so true. Let food be thy medicine, Socrates. So, we've known for a long time that food can be a source of medicine or it can be like a toxin. And in our current lifestyle, sadly, it's gone more towards the toxins. So I get to help. We get to get clear. Okay, so what is clean eating and how do we do it? This is where the confusion sets in, even for myself, right? So when we think about what to eat, when to eat it, and even as I age, my hormones are shifting and changing, or my metabolism is changing. How do I eat as I age? Noticing that my clothes are fitting differently as the decades roll by. So that is what most people experience, including myself. Anybody else confused or has ever been confused about that? And I would love at this time for you to share a question. Like, what do you get confused about? I'm going to stop the share for a moment and ask you guys. So you can come off of mute and share your question. What is most confusing to you?
I don't know if it's so much confusing as just seeing all the foods with so many ingredients that you can't even pronounce.
Yay, gold star, Steve. Thank you for that. We're going to talk about those types of ingredients and who thinks we should eat those type of ingredients.
But
Right?
how many of us do anyways, right?
I know, me included, right? So that is phenomenal. Thank you, Steve. We're going to hit that. What else? What are our other questions? Where do we get confused?
How about combinations of foods? Does anybody get, when to eat with what to maximize maybe
Love
uh,
that.
digestion?
Absolutely. And there's lots of philosophies about this. This is part of the ambiguity. Should I eat just fruits by themselves? Should I eat fruits and fats together? Should I eat proteins and carbohydrates together? Should I eat fats alone? What do I need to do in order to get the maximum nutrition out of my food? That's a good question. What else? Maybe one more. You could chat it too. You could put it in the chat. Oh, I hear you, Denise, but I don't hear you. Oh, yes. Unmuting is tricky. Maybe that will help.
Nope, she's still muted.
All right.
No.
Check us. Portion control, for the different types of foods.
Awesome. Great. Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to show an image of portion control, something that's helpful. We'll call it the magic plate. It's a nice diagram to help me think about of the different macronutrients, how much I should eat on my plate. That's awesome. All right. Here we go. Let's get back into where we're going. Okay. So clean eating is anything that reduces or does not add to inflammation in our body. And you can find tools to help you all over the place. Google is our friend. So just looking at this, some of the caveats here, depending on your own experience, and I know some of us here prefer to eat more meat, which is great, and some of us do better on vegetables. That is also a thing. So the bio individuality between each of us is important. So like, for instance, seeing this red meat over here in inflammatory, that could be medicine for some people if it's the right kind of red meat, right? So even some of these things can be confusing. All right, so here we go. Let's learn about inflammation. So this is what I really want us to be clear. This is the only thing we leave with, and you get still confused. You can always talk to me and we can figure out what you can do to start experimenting. But I want us to leave with an understanding of why inflammation is bad and bringing it down to the two types of inflammation. So inflammation in general is natural. It's a healing process that happens in our body when we're injured, we're sick, or we have some type of trauma, or even if we're experiencing any kind of stress from toxins in the outer environment and from emotional stress too. However, chronic inflammation is where disease can set in. So if I'm getting a splinter in my finger and you've experienced inflammation, it gets red, it gets hot, it gets swollen, that's the body's natural response. You have immune cells going there. They're going to produce some immune molecules that help clean up, inspire healing there. But then when it's healed, the inflammation should go away, and that's acute inflammation. So we're thinking about acute versus chronic inflammation. It's like fire. You feel that heat in your finger or wherever it is that you are experiencing inflammation, that acute inflammation. It's like the top one. You know what's there. It's obvious and it's painful, and it's going to go away once you're healed. But chronic inflammation is kind of behind the scenes. So you might not even realize you have it. I like this quote from Dr. Ammon. They might not even realize they have an inflammatory condition because it's a subtle change that occurs over weeks, months, and even years. So they're just dealing with the symptoms like fatigue every day and day after day. It gets a little bit worse. That was what happened to me. I was in my 20s, and after a decade of chronic stress, and my gut biome got dysregulated by a bunch of antibiotics I took because I got strep throat from teaching. That is what, for me, caused the demise of my digestive system and my health. So I didn't know, but it took me a decade, you guys, to figure it out. And just imagine how many of us are dealing with some type of inflammation that's so subtle. So you can also think of inflammation, which is like pulling on the chain of the links of your health, and the weakest link eventually will snap. So whether your liver is the weakest link, your bladder, your kidneys, maybe your skin, something is going to give, and then you're going to have some type of chronic issue that's saying, hey, you need to take care of something. And this is what that chronic inflammation can cause. Eventually, it can cause damage to DNA, which could lead to cancer. But in the end, this is speeding up our aging process. So all of these things are causing us to age more quickly. So any stress on the body ages us. So inflammation is in response to some kind of stress. And so maybe you've experienced some of these things like hormonal imbalance, blood sugar dysregulation, like you're pre-diabetic, or you know somebody with diabetes, or maybe you have diabetes, fatigue, chronic fatigue, weight gain, skin rashes, depression, the aging process is sped up, but then all of these chronic things and any autoimmune diseases like lupus and rheumatoid arthritis. So we get the picture, right? Inflammation is not good. All right. So we want to squelch this fire. Healthy food, these are some of the tenets of getting rid of inflammation in your body. This is how I help people through coaching, but squelching the fire with healthy food is super important. So that's what we're going to focus on today. Eating clean to lower and protect against inflammation is our goal. So let's get into some things that we're going to avoid. So foods to avoid in general. Inorganic stuff. We talk about, you hear a lot about organic and it's more expensive, and sometimes I buy and sometimes I don't. I'm not sure. And does it really make a difference? So we have tools out there, and every year they give us the Dirty Dozen, where they give the 12 foods that have the most contaminants after testing. And so those could be pesticides and herbicides. And this right here is produce. But we think about the meats that we eat and the quality of meats, or buying organic grass-fed meat is really important, because in the fat of the animal, that's where a lot of those toxins are stored. So antibiotics, hormones, we ingest those. And if they were fed feed and not pasture raised or grass fed, then that feed they ate was most likely genetically modified, which then has a whole host of other problems with their digestion, the inflammation in their bodies, and then we're eating that inflamed meat, and those antibiotics and pesticides and herbicides are affecting our digestion. Yay! Dirty Dozen. We got to be aware. Okay, so all this stuff is available to you when you're shopping. I'm going to give you the list, so don't worry. Next thing to think about, another buzzword, genetically modified, or GMO. What does that mean? That means that their DNA, their genome has been altered. In a lot of cases, it's to increase the yield of the crop, to increase revenue, to make it less expensive to apply pesticides to it. And these are some of the crops that are genetically modified. And we think about it, one of the main ones that I think about is corn. Like 90% of our corn is genetically modified. So all those corn chips, you think you might be getting some healthy corn chips. If it's not organic and it's genetically modified, it's inflammatory. But we think about canola, right? Canola oil, that's an oil that is widely used. It was in our kitchen when I was young. And that is also highly inflammatory, not just because it's genetically modified, but also because it has hydrogenated and trans fats, which causes inflammation too. Okay, the other thing to think about that's a big buzzword when we talk about GMOs is Bt toxin. That is something that they modified so the plant will create its own pesticide, so that if a caterpillar eats the leaf, it will die. And so we end up eating this plant, but that pesticide that's built into the produce is then ingested in us. You can imagine it's not great. So genetically modified, scratch that off your list. And I love this diagram. I found this. So thinking about no GMOs in organic food, that's what I go for. When I'm shopping, I just look for the organic label as much as I can. We do the best we can, in a philosophy to adopt without putting so much pressure on yourself is do the best you can. If 80% of the food that you eat is organic, hallelujah. If 50% is, hallelujah. If you just start today looking at organic food, hallelujah, right? But just to be aware, when you see just the non-GMO sign, doesn't mean that it is clean. Could still have all these pesticides and herbicides and other toxins in it. Okay, who's thoroughly scared now or pissed off? One of the two. That would be me. Okay, so here's another diagram that's super helpful. Thinking about what it is to consume food and how it was produced. So one thing I want to talk about today as we move forward is the energy of our food. And so that's kind of related to the energy that goes into the crops, the people, the farmers that are harvesting it. Is it traveling really far? Is it ripened in the truck with ethylene, or is it ripened on the vine? Is it growing in dirt, or is it growing hydroponically? All those things can affect the energetics of the food as well. So we're thinking about the energy of our food. We'll get into more of that at the end, but more information. Okay, when you're at the grocery store and you're looking at labels, these are some helpful things. You might have already gathered that the 9 before that 4-digit code means organic, but the 8 means genetically modified. So when I see an 8, I just turn around and do something else. I do not buy the 8s. And certain foods are totally fine to eat not organic. And that was the list of the clean 15. And you can pull it up on your phone whenever you're in the grocery store if you want to check. I do that sometimes. I'm like, wait, is this one? Can I buy these avocados? Is it safe? I might just look it up because I don't memorize it. Okay, helpful tip. Now we're thinking about processed foods. So just like Steve was mentioning, the labels, right? We're thinking about processed foods, packaged, and they have words that we can't pronounce. So chemicals that are not found in nature, that's what we want to avoid if possible and as much as possible. So packaged foods that have any of these elements in them, sweeteners are really not great for the nervous system. There's Nutri-Sweet, aspartame, Splenda. Sucralose is another one. It's not here, but it's also not good. Hydrogenated oils. The oils, you guys, are a really tricky one where we don't think about it. When I'm looking at like organic chips, sometimes I buy like root vegetable chips, but they might have canola oil in them. And then I'm just like, oh, I put it back in the shelf. But sometimes I buy them anyways because I'm like, I've been eating pretty healthy. This is a choice I'm making, but at least I'm conscious. So thinking about hydrogenated oils and trans fats, that's something that you want to really pay attention to. Okay. And all right. So dairy is a complicated one. For me, dairy love, hate. I used to be one that ate cheese with every meal. Anybody else relate to that? Mm-hmm. I would eat cheese with every meal, and I would eat cheesecake and all those delicious things. But when I got ill, I had all these gut problems. So I experienced like brain fog, super anxiety, which I had in my classroom was probably exacerbated by the dairy I was eating. And I was treated for acid reflux when I had my symptoms, but also eczema, and that will show up on my skin still to this day. So working on healing my gut, it takes years, you guys. So we get to be very patient and kind with ourselves as we heal our gut. But if you've had any of these symptoms, or maybe you had them chronically, it could be because of the dairy that you're eating. So when we're thinking about dairy, if we could go back to the days where we just had raw milk, it's actually healing. Raw milk that's not homogenized or pasteurized, it actually has healthy bacteria in it, and it has enzymes to help you digest the lactose. But when we homogenize and pasteurize it, we change the size of the fat molecules, and then they can enter into our bloodstream and take toxins, if it's not a grass-fed organic cow, into our bloodstream. But also the enzymes, which are proteins, get denatured. And so a lot of the nutrition value is gone and the digestive benefits are gone. So thinking about dairy, just something to consider. We get to do experiments with it. I really appreciated learning more about A1, A2. I learned this from one of the functional doctor friends. There's cows that, so over many decades of cross breeding of cows, the Northern European countries came up with a cow that is mostly the cow that's in America, and it creates A1 milk, which this is very controversial. So you get to just go with whatever your body feels. But there are studies that show that it's possible that this A1 beta casein can be linked to, when it's metabolized in your body, it creates this opioid-like protein, which could be linked to other things like diabetes and heart disease and even autism. But I thought this is valuable just to compare so that we're aware. You can get A2 milk, and it's created from cows like in France and India, and they have the big hump on their back. And that cow is creating milk that's more nutritious, has more minerals in it, especially like the fact that it has, do this next slide. I don't know if it shows in this diagram, but it has strontium in it, and strontium is helpful for your immune system, which I thought was fascinating. So even things like that are not available in the A1 cows, which we have in our American dairy case. So A2 milk is available. You just got to do a little research. So if you are heck bent on getting some dairy in your system, try A2 milk. And here's some of the animals that also create A2 milk. So goats, sheep. If you've got any camel milk around, then you can have some of that, and I'm sure that'd be delicious. But we think about those hardy populations in India, the Himalayas, and Nepal, and they're drinking this type of milk, super healthy. So I went through this phase of like how milk is toxic, is terrible for you, and it's ruining my life. And healthy whole milk is actually very beneficial and can be very healing to the gut. Okay, so there's that. Okay, a little bit about wheat and gluten. Don't worry, guys, we're almost going to go off this terrifying ride. So why is wheat bad? Why is gluten bad? And it's not bad for everybody, right? It could be bad for some of us, and certainly the wheat that we have, and I'll show us a picture, just shows a little bit difference of how wheat has changed with cross-pollination and genetically modified stuff. But I love this visual. So when the doctors were explaining to me leaky gut syndrome, I have a biology degree, so this is what I see in my head. The junction between the cells widens, and so things that shouldn't cross this blood barrier do, and they get into the bloodstream when they shouldn't. So certain things like pathogens, but also toxins, get through here, and like those little small molecules of fat from the dairy, because it's homogenized, they can sneak through when they shouldn't sneak through. And some of these pathogens and other proteins that are so big that shouldn't be in the system cause inflammation. So this is how, when lectin, which is a type of protein that gluten is, it can cause the junctions between the cells to widen, and then stuff gets into your bloodstream that shouldn't be there. So that is, for me, the visual that helps me, like when I'm staring the croissant in the face and I'm like, okay, am I going to do that to myself? Sometimes I choose yes, having a croissant, but sometimes I'm just like, nope, I'm giving myself a rest. And my protocol for me is generally like I go for a amount of time without eating gluten at all, and then I'll have some treats here and there. And that's kind of how I do it. Okay, so just stuff to think about. Ancient wheat, modern wheat. So you can see the wheat germ is a lot bigger over there on the right-hand side. And whatever we've done to cross-pollinate, genetically modify this wheat, it's caused that gluten protein to be destructive to some people's gut linings, that not everybody. But over in Europe, they have more strict guidelines on GMOs, and their wheat seems to be less abrasive to the gut lining. So,
Jen, the wheat we have now has
Yeah.
100 times the gluten that was in products than when I was a kid, and
Wow.
our bodies have not accommodated. We haven't evolved to handle that. It happened very fast.
Okay.
So
Thank you. Absolutely. So, and I know that we're going to talk about this stuff in a moment. So, all you guys that have things or experiences around this, you've had dairy situations or gluten situations, or you went off and you had an experience, I want to hear about them. I want you guys to share them so you can start thinking about what you might share. But thank you so much. And you guys can pop off anytime and share stuff. Okay. So, non-celiac gluten sensitivity. This was me too, right? With the leaky gut and the dairy problems. This is what I experienced: brain fog and fatigue. I had eczema that was popping up on my face and other places. I would have bloating and pain. So that was my experience. And if you've had any of those, you might consider experimenting with no gluten for a while. Okay. Sugar. This is my favorite. I saved it last. So just a couple diagrams. Great resources out there. Sugar, the Bitter Truth is a lecture that's on YouTube that really helped clarify for me why sugar is so bad. Because if you're like me, you're like, oh, it's not so bad. Everybody's eating it. It can't be that bad. And I really had to understand, like, it hit over the head with the reality of sugar. One, it is addictive. It lights up the reward center in your brain, just like opioids. So Jen Sprague, super addicted to sugar. Two, it is causing those blood sugar roller coasters. So then you crash and you have no energy. And all the while, that is affecting your ability to regulate your blood sugar. So insulin insensitivity is then going to happen to you. And that this whole sugar experience is a whole nother webinar. So we might talk about that more at a later date. But just something to think about, like, holy cannolis, we weigh more just from 25 years ago. When we think about what our friend Candy was just saying, when she was young, the gluten was 100 times less prevalent in the wheat that we're eating. Think about the sugar consumption back then, right? So back in like 1850, when we started to be able to refine sugar, that's when the consumption shot up. And then you also have this obesity that's going right along with it. And for a while, we blamed it on fat and we went to the low fat diets, but that was inaccurate. That we kind of shot ourselves in the foot there, because healthy fats are crucial. And we'll talk about it. Okay. Yay, sugar. So sad. We're going to let you go just a little bit. Okay. So linked to increases in obesity, heart disease, diabetes, other inflammatory conditions. Sorry, sugar. Here's some names, guys. I can send a list of the different names of sugars, but you can look it up on your phone too. So when we think about reading labels, like Steve was saying, sugar, we humans have found lots of ways to mask sugar in the label. And if you have any of these in the first 3 or 4 ingredients of that product, you probably shouldn't eat it, or you should eat it in really moderation, and maybe eat it with something else that's high in protein or high in healthy fats. So all these goodies. All right. And moving on. So what reduces inflammation? But before we get that, I really want to hear from you guys now. So take it away. Talk to me about your experiences about any of those things that we just talked about that are big contributors to inflammation in our body. Go.
I've noticed over the years that wheat like having a slice of wheat bread for breakfast or, for toast. And I don't do it anymore because I changed to rye if I'm going to have toast, but wheat makes me cough.
Okay.
I literally feel like my lungs tend to feel like they're closing in or something.
Absolutely. Does anybody else get that experience? Certainly inflammation for me from dairy was constricting of my nasal passages. I would get so stuffy and nasal drainage would happen. Does anybody have any experiences with dairy?
I do, and my phone's gonna die. I couldn't get on with the computer, so I can eat a little. Gluten doesn't bother me, although if I eat a lot of carbs, I gain weight. But I can eat bread. But dairy, I can have a little bit of dairy, but if I eat too much, I will get doubled over with stomach pain. And I want to say one thing that I do. There's a product that I take, and actually I'm a distributor for it now, but and it has 48 published studies. It's all fruits and vegetables. It has a food label on it, and one of their studies says that it helps with inflammation. So Jen, when you were talking about that, I'm like, yeah, fruits and vegetables, and eating the rainbow. So eating not just the same 2 or 3 vegetables over and over, but as much variety as you can get into your diet. That's real important.
Thank you. Absolutely. High five. Those are some of the things she just hit on, guys. So colorful diet, flavonoids, and really colorful foods are super helpful for anti-inflammatory stuff, polyphenols, and like dark leafy vegetables and chocolate. Dark chocolate is really good too. So
Can I
what
say
else?
something?
Yes.
Okay, now I'm going to be the contrast here
Yes. Hit us.
because I was raised, to farm everything, can everything, preserve everything, grow your own food. I eat salads and vegetables. I have chopped mountains of those things in my life, and that was the way I ate. But at the end of all of that, when I was about 50, I had 13 symptoms that I wrote down that I couldn't sleep. I was up to 180 pounds. Let's get real. And I couldn't lose it no matter what I did. How many salads, how many grilled chicken breasts, none of it mattered. How much I walked 5 miles a day. Oh no, nothing would let me lose weight. And so I went to the doctor. The doctor took blood tests. The doctor said, oh, you're a very healthy woman for your age, and you're not even premenopausal yet. And it's like, really? That didn't help at all. So then I went to a muscle testing doctor, and he said, you're so toxic. You're creating fat cells to thin out the toxins in your body. So then we went on a detox program of all these radish pills and everything else for a couple months. And the weight did come off, but the weight would come back up. And he said, it was because of the stress. And I was making too much of that. What's that C word chemical?
Kinase. What is that, Biggie? Cytokine.
Cortisol.
Cortisol, yeah.
Oh,
it's making too much cortisol. Okay, so then my son suggested, because he had tried it, he said, Mom, why don't you try the carnivore diet? And it seemed pretty extreme to me because it's only meat and maybe eggs and maybe a little cheese, but that's all it is really. And it's like, but then he sent me a doctor's site on that, and it had all different kinds of reports and testimonials. And I was at the end of my rope. I'd been to all the doctors I knew to go to, and they just said, oh, aren't you so healthy? And so I decided, what the heck? Did you see I caught myself there?
You
Jen?
did. Well done.
Thank you. So I said, what the heck? And I tried the carnivore diet, and I'm just going to share this because this is my experience. Okay, so the first steak I made, nothing else. I'm used to potatoes, vegetables, applesauce, coleslaw, whatever. Steak. And I made the steak and I seasoned it. So it's well seasoned. I'm good at seasoning. So like 3 bites in, it's like, oh my God, I love this. I just every bite is like, oh, I've had steak before, but this is really good. So I did the carnivore diet. In fact, I did it for 3 years, and I came down from 180 to 130. It just dropped. And my headaches went away. I started sleeping again. my temperature, my basal temperature had dropped. It came back up to normal. What were some of those other symptoms? Oh, tons of them. But it cured all the symptoms. And yesterday, 2 days ago, I was in vitamin shop. I go there a lot. And I was looking for ingredients to make my own toothpaste. And I mentioned the carnivore diet because no one else was in there and we were talking. He says, I've researched diets, and the carnivore diet has been researched to be the most healthful diet. So if you want to cure things quickly, the carnivore diet seems to work for a while. It gets rid of the oh, that's the thing. Got rid of all the inflammation, all my bloating, all my gas. It was like heaven on earth. If you take dancing and you have gas, not a good idea. But if you go on carnivore and all of a sudden you have no gas at all, very nice. You see what I mean? It just solved so many problems so quickly, and it was a joy to stock it in my refrigerator. And then I feel bad because I know you're supposed to eat the rainbow. And it's like, but I'm doing so well,
Yeah.
So after 3 years, I have started to incorporate coleslaw. I'll have some mini peppers sometimes. I'll vary that. I will never in this lifetime eat corn.
So thank you for sharing that, Shannon. That is a great example of how bio-individual we are. And even in like Ayurveda, they talk about, and in India, there's a large population that is vegetarian there, but food is medicine. And so there are illnesses and diseases and things that can be healed from eating meat, and it is easily digested. And as long as your meat is clean and it's not filled with toxins, then it can be very healing.
That's important.
And some people, like, we can talk about different types of diets, blood type diets. You can get your genes tested and it'll spit out a recommended diet for you based on your genes and what they know about diet and genes right now. That will change as we learn more about the genome. But everybody is so unique. Some people that would try to eat just meat would feel bloated and would feel like negatively affected by red meat. And so it's totally bio-individual. But I love what you said about how you loved it when you ate it, right? Our body will give us cues. Like if you have cravings for something, unless it's like sugar, because there's lots of other factors that are going to go along with your cravings for sugar. But if you have cravings for like something salty or something specific, then you get to let yourself eat that and see how you feel. That's what we get to start doing with our bodies, experimenting and following those cues. So thank you for that. And yes, the carnivore diet has lots of testimonials from people having like drastic healing experiences. And for some people that would be a great, like type O people, the blood type diet, they should eat more meat, versus a type A blood type would be more vegetables. And I'm type B, so I can eat both technically. But even at different times in your life, you could be eating different things. Like when I was sick, my naturopath had me on mostly vegetables. Like I was energy testing for the type A blood type, but I didn't know what blood type I was. Then all of a sudden I started testing for a B blood type diet. And I was like, what? He's like, oh, well, this will give you the type of diet that's going to help you, return to a balance, return to homeostasis in your body. So when I was healing and I was closer to my happy, healthy self, then I turned back into like the type B diet where I could eat more meat. I could tell you what was really, really sad when I was supposed to eat mostly vegetables, but some people love vegetables, right? Experiences. Talk to me, Vicki. What's your experience?
Sorry, I was on mute. Specifically me? Are you asking me my experience? Well,
Yes.
I'm a vegetarian, so
Yes.
the carnivore diet, no. And no way. And I feel I've done every kind of diet excluding meat under the sun. And generally when I eat a pretty well balanced diet without with low in sugar or no sugar, no grains, it's when I feel my best. So but it's not easy to do. The world is it's always showing you other things.
Yeah.
It's always putting other things there. And I have I think I have a lot of knowledge around this, and it's still very hard for me, and knowledge is only part of the battle. So
thank you.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Anyway.
I think the key is reading your own body, because there are cultures like in Alaska, they only eat meat and they have no dental caries, no heart disease. I mean, they're so healthy, but it's their culture. So I think it has to do with your ancestry, and it's a very individual thing. So you have, like, before I did the carnivore, I'd been just like Vicky. I had tried every diet on the planet. I had researched all vegetables, vegetables with this, food combinations. Oh my God, I could write books on diets. And then the carnivore, it was so simple, and I was desperate. So, but when I ate those first three, oh my God, I love
Yes,
that
we
diet.
loved
I still
it.
love that diet. So I
Yeah.
really think we have to pay attention, try things, and see how your body responds and how you feel in the moment, because your
Awesome.
body will let you know if this is yes or a no.
Yes, and even sometimes it'll let you know within like the first bite or two. You might have
Exactly.
in your
Exactly. And if you get tired, or, or you're craving it, that's probably not a good sign. See what I
So
mean?
thank you, Shannon. Does
Right.
anybody else want to share what your experience is or what you've learned about your own body?
Hey Jen, my
Yeah.
wife and I, we went vegetarian for like 7 years, which is very hard, by the way. But I lost like 40 pounds and all that stuff. And then it was funny because my wife started having some issues and stuff, and she couldn't figure out what it was. And so she finally went to Dr. Joe. And Dr. Joe said that that she was very vitamin B, whichever B, I don't know which B, but very deficient. And so she literally told her, you know what, as soon as you leave here, you need to go eat a cheeseburger. It was just kind of funny that she said that. And I was like, at first, I was like, we made it 7 years. I am not going to go start eating meat all of a sudden. What in the world's going on? But you know what? I feel like it ends up coming down to the quality one of the meat, because if you're getting meat that's hopped up on all of the drugs that our society puts in them, instead of, like you were saying, grass fed, healthy stuff, and everything is in moderation no matter what. But it's funny, even as a vegetarian, we can eat crap, and we do all of the time, and so it's just interesting.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Stephen. That's another thing too. I have a client who's vegetarian too, and he recently started adding chicken back in, and
Yep.
then I feel really good about it. And he was really nervous, but we had been coaching together for like a year or more, and he'd been a vegetarian for a long, long time. So even in times of your life, right? Like vegetarian could work for somebody in their 20s, but maybe when they're 50, it doesn't work anymore. And so being willing to experiment and listen to your body as you change, seasonally and throughout the decades is really valuable. So I appreciate that. That's good, Steve. Anybody else? These are all very good variation. Okay, we're going to jump back in then and wrap this baby up. Okay. So reducing inflammation, we're thinking about the rainbow. So in general, there's a lot of research about polyphenols, flavonoids, fiber, and those things come from plants. And meat has vitamins stored in it as well. So it's not like you're going to be malnourished if you're on carnivore diet, except for a few things you would take supplement for. But what reduces inflammation in general, places to start are this. So I like to start with healthy oils, because I think this is where we get most confused about inflammation. Like if I might be cooking or sauteing like a nice Asian feast with lots of fresh, locally grown, organic produce with some wild caught salmon, and then I'm using an oil that's not healthy, that oil is inflammatory and it's going to negate the benefits of the other foods that are there. So we think looking at the good fats. So olive oil, actually medium heat for olive oil. So you don't want to like fry something for a long period of time in olive oil. But avocado and peanut butter can all be high heat. Coconut oil can be high heat. These are the types of oils that we want to stick to. The refined oils, less so. But then the fats that we would like to avoid, or at least limit, because nothing needs to be off limits forever. If you're healthy, you can have a threshold of for anything. So soy, sunflower, canola, corn, those things are genetically modified, right? And they're not organic most of the time. So that's one reason. But anything also that's hydrogenated, or if there's trans fat, then that's going to be inflammatory. So whipped cream, fantastic. Put it on your coffee, maybe once or twice a month or something. But if it becomes every day for me, then I might start to notice some, effects or whatnot. Margarine, we used to cook with that. So just thinking about
Jen,
this. Yes.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Just because I'm just so curious, because I use grapeseed oil, and I think I use like an artisanal, but what's the difference? Because I see it in the bad column and the you can use it column.
Grapeseed. Maybe it's here. I don't use grapeseed oil, so I don't have a lot of experience. Does anybody else have experience with that? I'm not sure what it is about grapeseed oil, although I know that like they say to stay away from the seed oils in general because of the inflammatory effects, but I don't know. Vicky, do you have any information on that one? Vicky is our naturopath here.
Yeah, I don't think rapeseed oil is all that bad. In general, I generally try to stick to olive oil for the most part, and then get the other fats through other things. But I don't think it's that bad. The seed oils, avoid them because of the omega-6s, but you're going to see that in walnut oil and sesame oil and others as well. So,
Okay.
So I'm not really sure why that's on there either, but
I just see them in both spots. That's what my question.
I'm glad you asked.
Oh, right.
Because what, Danny?
They're in both spots. It's in the don't use and in the caution.
Oh, I
with
see.
the,
Yeah, right.
I'm wondering if artisanal grapeseed is a different processing for the grapeseed
Could be.
oil, which is
Yeah.
more healthy than just straight grapeseed oil. I'm guessing that's a different way of
I'm
processing.
super sad to hear this, because I've kind of fallen in love with grapeseed oil.
Well,
Well, if
research
your body
it.
reacts well, who cares?
Yeah, and research it. Maybe it's something that you're fine with. I think it is like the ratio of omega-3 to omega-6, right? That's going to be different between the different types of oils. And these ones,
Or maybe a chemical that they use.
yeah, maybe it's not often organic or something. Maybe you can find organic grapeseed oil. So that's a really important point, you guys. You guys get to create. So when we write the title of this today, it's Eat for You. So thank you for asking that, Jenny. That goes for everything. What works for you and what do you love? Because Jenny loves chocolate, and so she's going to figure out a way to like work that into her life. So I experimented with it all the time, and I feel where my limits are, and I go over my threshold, and then I got to start over again. But you get to figure out what works for you, and you can take baby steps, right? So if you want to ease out of one of these oils, you can like use up the rest of your bottle or something. Don't feel guilty about it, right? You do the best you can, and then you can try a new one, or maybe you do half and half or whatever. So that's a great point. Okay. The other thing we need to think about is our healthy gut. So from my personal experience and from the symptoms I hear a lot from clients, the bloating, the brain fog, the fatigue, a lot of it, like the health really stems in our gut. The gut is really the foundation. Healthy gut, you can pretty much stand anything. Like your gut is like 80% of your immune system as well. So we think about our gut and how it can be ruined. Like what are some ways that our gut is ruined? You can just yell it out. How can our gut be damaged?
Being inflammatory.
Eating inflammatory, 100%. What else? Antibiotics was mine. I took like antibiotics for strep throat like 3 years in a row. I had no idea. This is before I knew anything about the gut biome. And I think that really messed me up when it was in my 20s. Anybody else have a gut situation? Or maybe there's all right. So let me go back. Thank you very much.
You have whipped cream in that coffee, I seen.
I know, right?
Just kidding.
We'll get to that. So definitely when we think about supporting our gut, it takes some time to reestablish. And if you have leaky gut like I did and still have symptoms of, so it's still a process, you can do anything as dramatic as a bone broth fast for 4 days and like clearing out your gut and then restarting. There are protocols for something like that, or you get to just wean yourself off of some of the inflammatory foods and wean yourself back into the healthy foods. And the fiber, the reason why fiber is a happy thing, that it provides some food for your healthy bacteria. So when I'm eating inflammatory foods, I still have bacteria in my gut, but it's bacteria that is causing inflammation, releasing toxins into my gut stream versus the healthy bacteria, which many of them are metabolizing vitamins for us to be used. And when they're taking up a lot of space, there's not a lot of room for the negative bacteria to take hold and start proliferating. But when I'm eating constantly acidic foods like inflammatory foods, or having antibiotics, which are killing all the bacteria that's good and bad, then those negative, unhealthy, inflammatory bacteria can take hold. So thinking about rebuilding your gut health and giving it a rest. Intermittent fasting is a nice way to try to give your gut a rest. And there's many of you here, I know, have had a lot of experience with fasting. So I'd like to hear some of your experiences, but also just this idea of intermittent fasting. Who wants to share their experience of that? Don't need to hear me talk the whole time. My experience, if I can start us off, is at this point in my life, I tend to get hungry a few hours after I wake up, and then I try to stop eating around 6. So I usually eat around 10 and stop eating around 6. And that seems to be pretty good for me, and I feel pretty good. But some intermittent fasters eat 1 meal a day, and the rest of the time their gut is resting, right? Shannon does. So the idea there is to give your gut a rest. There's no stress when it's not forced to like eat your snacks all day and digest and process and put a lot of energy into that. So, and also stopping putting food into your body before bed a few hours, making sure that your digestive system is empty, because then at night you can do your detoxification and your restorative processes. You're not spending energy on digestion. So who else wants to share an intermittent fasting story or fasting story?
I've done a lot of fasting.
Yes.
So now I do 1 meal a day because that's what's comfortable for me. I hated breakfast my entire life. Oh, I was forced to eat it. I'm not good with breakfast. I'm not good. I wake up with a lot of energy and I'm ready to go. And so I do that. And then around 3, 4, 5, I get hungry. Then I come in and I eat whatever I want. And then that's it. And then my body rests. I also have been on dry fasts, and that I did that for healing purposes because I had certain issues I needed to heal. And dry fast is very interesting because there's a lot of different information on it, but the bottom line is no food, no drink at all. And they say between 24 and 48 hours, your body will make the switch where it actually changes gear and makes all of its water out of the fat and whatnot in your body and all of its food by eating the malformed cells, oxidized cells, dead cells, cancer cells, all those things. And that's how it feeds itself during this time. And it's one of the most healing things you can do for your body, but it takes some discipline. And then I talked to another big energetic natural healer who said dry fasts are very good, but you have to go to hour 72, which was not 48. So I respect him enough. So you go to 72. I'm in a dry fast right now. This is day 6. When I'm serious about a dry fast, I do 7 days. And so after tomorrow, I'll start eating Saturday. And then I start with salt water, and then I bring in bone broth. And by the way, I think bone broth, and I make my own, is one of the best substitutes for coffee there is. It's so satisfying. It's hot. It feels
No way. No way.
It's so good for you.
Absolutely 0 way.
Okay.
No way.
Thank
Have you ever had it? Have you ever had the
Yeah, I've
bone
had it for sure. I've had bone broth, but I've nothing.
Did you make your own?
Nothing is nothing
substitute
is
for
substituting coffee.
Okay, just
I
along
love
those lines, everyone should know that Shannon's refrigerator always has a supply of fresh whipped cream from Real Whipping Cream.
Yes, and she puts it
That
on.
goes on my coffee. I didn't.
That's great.
Thank
I know
you.
that
It's
Vicky
beautiful.
and I,
Thank you. Go ahead,
Vicky
Jenny.
and I have done a lots of, we've done fasting. I'm pulling you right into this, Vicky, because I'm a big fan of fasting. Sometimes I've done it in big ways where I've done cheese, just juice. Like I did a 30-day juice fast when I was in Boulder, but
I thought you said cheese fast, but
I
oh,
know.
that'd be funny. I do whipped cream fast. No.
There's somebody out there that would be beneficial for. I just don't know who it is. If it's
I've done coffee fasts.
Yeah.
So just coffee, but certainly not bone broth, but coffee, real coffee, not bone broth, and nothing else for long periods of time. And
yes,
so
you have.
felt
I think it's like
amazing.
25 days, I feel like, right? Did you do that
Mhm,
one?
yeah, that was my last one. Yeah, felt amazing. Felt better than when I eat.
So do you get addicted to the caffeine after that? Do you have a hard time backing down?
Backing down.
Oh, so you drink coffee all day long?
I could, but I drink coffee every day for sure. But I don't drink it all day long. I could.
After that fast, I heard that if you drink a lot of coffee and then you cut it down, you get headaches and stuff. Did you have any symptoms when you stopped the coffee fast?
Yeah, no, I'm totally addicted to coffee. So yeah, I did, it wasn't a coffee fast per se. I was doing a fast, but I just wasn't willing to drop the coffee from my fast as well, right? So
it was drink the
I
coffee
wasn't
really
willing.
fast. So that's what
Yeah,
it was.
exactly. I mean, when you go into a fast, your body goes through a lot of changes. I didn't also want to withdraw from my big addiction at the same time, and so I gave myself that. It's called I think we call it a dirty fast when you drink coffee. So I did a dirty fast for 25 days, and I felt amazing. And I wear an Aura ring, and so the Aura ring gave me an incredible positive feedback about my cardiovascular health, my sleep, and everything when I do the fasting. So
thank you. I'm so thankful you guys shared your experiences. That's what's valuable to anybody that's going to watch this replay, because like wrapping it up, and sorry we went over and we started late with our fun technical difficulty. Feel free to leave if you need to leave. But as we think about moving into the rest of our week and you're thinking about going to the grocery store again, I'm going to share with you the foods list so you can print it out. And I want you to consider, like, what am I willing to experiment with one thing next week, right? Maybe I'm going to just look at my oils and switch them out, or maybe I'm just going to try no gluten for a week, or maybe I'm going to just decrease my sugar for a week. Whatever it is, think about one thing that you can shift and then use that as a way to start noticing the changes in your body. And if you want to do something more detailed, I help people through just a 7-day reset. And that's just 7 days of eating nothing but anti-inflammatory foods. So we really cut out everything, all the corn, all the caffeine, all the sugar, and the gluten and the dairy. And we then reintroduce one at a time. So you can really get an experiment with, one variable at a time to see what your effects are. And sometimes you guys, because this is such a ambiguous science, you might not have effects until a few days later from something that you eat. So it's not always possible to get like what is the culprit to some type of symptom you're experiencing. But as you start to listen to your body more, you're going to get way better at understanding the cues, knowing which combination of things work for you. But certainly we could do a whole nother webinar on the different types of diets like paleo, Mediterranean, keto, macro, and like the whole 30 experience. But if you're curious, that is my call to action for you. Take your curiosity and be like, something about me is interested in the paleo diet, or something about me is interested in keto, or something about me is interested in carnivore, or something is interested about being vegetarian. Try it out and let your body tell you, because it does not lie. So before we leave, I would love for you to share one thing that you're taking away, or if you know what you're committing to, one little shift or change or experiment, what would that be? Go.
I think I'm going to do the whipped cream diet. Just kidding. Just kidding.
My work is done. I quit. I'm never coaching you.
Yeah.
That's cute, Steve.
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, you can use that whipped cream in a variety of ways.
And you can use whole milk whipped cream, and you can get
Yeah.
some A2 whipped cream and let us know how that goes, because for some people it's super healing to the gut. But yeah, what are you going to do, Steve? What are you going to actually do?
You know, I do not know yet, honestly. I do not know yet.
All right.
But I do
We're
know
gonna
that
come
I
back
need
around.
to definitely cut back on some sugar. And I haven't did some long fasts. So I don't know. I guess finding the right combination of what I guess a long fast would be. I don't know if I could do 6 days like she did, but
25,
man,
25.
that's amazing. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
7 days.
that's amazing.
Well,
So
when you read about
Oh.
that and you understand all the healing that's going on after
yeah,
the body makes that switch, it's so worth it. It's so worth it that you can see things change. And it's like, whew, it's like a gift I give to my body. And that's my intention. I'm going to gift you with this kind of support for these 7 days because I love you. You've supported me. I live in you and I appreciate you. So I'm going to
yeah.
help you heal, detox, whatever you need to do.
I love
Like
that
you
because
want-
that is a mindset shift right there. And I love that because I think food is a trigger for a lot of us. I know it is certainly for me. It's like sometimes I eat and I'm not even really hungry. I'm like, why am I eating this? You know, and I think we all do that sometimes. So I love that, what you
Absolutely.
just said, Shannon.
Thanks.
Ariel, I haven't heard from you yet, and I'm so curious what you're taking away.
I knew you would do that. I was thinking, as Steve was talking, I have followed Shannon's dry fasts several times. I haven't done it. I just know she's on it, and then she talks about how she feels. And I'm at a point where I have always, Shannon and I are sisters, and I hated breakfast too. And we haven't had breakfast. When my husband and I married, I said, I don't do breakfast. And he said, that's fine. I don't either. So we haven't done breakfast for almost our whole marriage. Every once in a while, I get hungry. I do have a special needs son, so I do fix him a breakfast, but I don't eat it. And I get hungry about the same time Shannon does. And when I have something to eat, then my husband comes home wanting dinner, and I'm not hungry at all. So if I were going to make a change, I think the dry fast would be the most logical for me because so much now at my age, I'm not as hungry as I used to be. Now, when I don't eat, then I get really hungry for chocolate. I mean, I could just for an hour, you know. So you got to be careful. And when you don't eat, like if you wait till the end of the day, like when I get hungry, if I were like doing a certain diet, that would be a good way to handle it because then I'm only eating certain things. I'm not going crazy with all my cravings. But if I were to make a change, there's 3 things. I need more movement, I need more water, and I might try a fast just to see, you know, just to give my whole system a rest and not be introducing things into my system that might inflame it. And I probably am Shannon says I'm very inflamed. So I will take that as probably true because we do eat grains and we eat a lot of the normal stuff.
American, yeah.
And a lot of stuff we don't.
Mm.
So
Well, that's
it's
great.
not real structured.
Yeah, you've got 3 options, baby steps.
Yeah.
Well, and I would love to talk to you about it too if you wanted any support in any of that. I love.
Okay. I'll if
yeah, I love
yeah.
it. What
Yep,
else?
Yep.
If you could change one little thing, and what would it be? Anybody else? Be willing to do? Jules? Oh, I can't hear you. I don't know what it is, but it's not because you're on mute, because you're not on mute. Maybe you can type it in the chat.
No, typing is hard.
Yeah, but I don't know how to help her with the sound.
Uh.
Janny, what do you want to try?
I think I'm going. I use a lot of olive oil anyway, but I think I'll just probably move away from grapeseed just because grapeseed just does tasteless. I was using it to cook for my kids, so I just use olive oil.
All right. Vicky? Anything you want to start up again? Because you probably do all those things.
Oh, well, I've been traveling and I'm all disordered right now. So,
You have been.
what's that?
You have been traveling.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to start with, just putting some time restriction on my day, maybe like an 11 to 7 or something. Also, in the Breakfast Haters Club. So
Awesome. We could all just meditate and dance together in the morning until we get hungry.
awesome.
Okay. All right. Unity coming right up. Steve, did you pick something?
Me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, not really, but I'm not really in the breakfast. I don't like breakfast in the morning either, which is funny because my wife has to have breakfast and I'm like, I could wait till lunch. So
That's funny. I had a roommate too. She would have 2 breakfasts. She would eat immediately upon rising, and then she'd have second breakfast like a couple hours later. And she's very fit and everything. So it just goes to show the differences in her and I. And she could eat just one little chocolate too. And I'd be like, I'll eat like 6 of those. So there you have it. Could you do any chatting? No, Julie? Nothing? I'm curious. That's okay. I'll call you later to get the scoop. Mom, did you think of anything new? You're going to come off of dry fasting on Saturday.
Yes.
Nice.
And here's the other thing. If you cook for yourself, if you learn to use spices well, then you can make anything taste really yummy. I mean,
there's anti-inflammatory spices. Turmeric, pepper.
And some are very healthy. If you're going to use turmeric, use black pepper because that makes it 75% more effective. And the other thing about those oils, you can flavor your oils yourself by dropping some hot peppers in them and some spices in the bottle, and then over time that flavors the oil, and it's quite delightful.
I have some garlic oil right now.
Yeah, I know. See, garlic is a great thing to put in oils. You just plop organic stuff in there and it's wonderful. Anyway, that's all. Right. I really like it.
I so appreciate you making this magical, all of our varied experiences shared, and hopefully a better understanding of what clean eating means and what it means to not eat clean. And now we just get to experiment with curiosity and joy and no pressure, and we get to lean on each other. Community, right? That's how we do it. Especially if you're doing a fast, it's nice to do it with somebody. But as always, I'm here. I'm going to send you guys some resources that you can print and take with you and all the fun things. And until we meet again, there'll be another one in a week, but it'll be a different topic. So you'll find out. All right. Thanks so much for being here. So appreciate everybody's input that could